Welcome back. I'm Brian Tier, pastor of Tyler Road Baptist Church in Henderson, Texas. Thank you for joining us today. We're going through the book of Ecclesiastes. This is our next lesson in our Sunday school quarterly. It covers chapters 6 through 10, and then next time we'll cover 11 and 12. But I want to focus in on chapter 9 today. I think the quarterly covers chapter 7 and does a nice job there. I want to focus in on chapter 9. I think it starting to bring the conclusion around. So we talked about this last time, and probably the best place to start with your study in Ecclesiastes. And by the way, I I usually study this pretty early, but I've really had to go back and restudy this 1,000 times. This isn't a book that you can really study that great at 5:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning. You really need to have your focus in and ready to go. Maybe have a pot of coffee or two, not a cup of coffee, but maybe a pot of coffee or two to go through all of these things and I try to make it cohesive, make everything work together. And some of it's not easy because he is making a large point here. And that's the thing that you have to keep in mind, and that's why I wanted to turn to this chapter first. In chapter 12, verse 13 and 14, we looked at this last time, but I think that it bears mentioning that if you're studying the book of Ecclesiastes, before you start it, every study, go back to the conclusion. What did he conclude here with all of these things that he's saying? Because you'll come away with the wrong idea that the Bible's teaching things that it doesn't teach, that men and animals are the same, their deaths are the same, and all this kind of stuff. That's true, again, under the SUN. Everybody dies, and we're going to start with that kind of today as well. But the fact is that when you pair God into that, and you pair the SON, the Son of God, into that, Jesus, everything changes. It changes every outlook on your life. If you're looking at this purely from a physical standpoint, then we have no meaning. We have, and this is the problem with evolution and all of these other things that are taught, is that without including God, there is no point. There's no point to why we have wisdom, why we have wealth, why we labor and do all of these things, because we're just going through the paces with no explanation for it whatsoever. And that's the way that everybody goes through without the Son of God in their lives. And so we need to choose Christ. That's kind of the point. Verse 13, this is the last chapter in Ecclesiastes, chapter 12. Okay. And verse 13 and 14, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. What's the conclusion to the whole thing, the whole problem? Fear God. Okay. That's the beginning of wisdom, right? We talked about that way back in the book of Proverbs. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole, I like that, whole duty of man. Okay. And you know what else is good about this is that these two verses are easy for us to understand. Some of the things in Ecclesiastes may not be that easy for us to understand, but we do understand this, that the whole conclusion is our whole duty is to fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. I like that. I like whenever things are concise and says, okay, this is the point I'm trying to make. All right. And so then you take all of Ecclesiastes and everything is trying to make this point, that fearing God, keeping his commandments, that's the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work unto judgment, both wise things and foolish things, everything that we've done. Our labors, all of those things are going to be brought under the judgment of God. Okay, and with every secret thing, whether good or whether it be evil, the bad and the good, the whole thing is going to be weighed out by the Lord at the end whenever we see him. Okay, now the only difference that's going to be made here is whether you are a child of God or whether you're not. All right, and so the question is have you chosen Jesus Christ as your Savior? Have you been saved? Because if you try to stand there in your own righteousness before him, you're going to stand there defeated. There's going to be many people that are going to stand there and they're going to say, haven't I done all of these things and even done them in your name, for your name? And he's going to say, He's going to declare to them on that day, "Depart from me, you worker of iniquity, for I never knew you." Okay, he never knew them. It wasn't that he knew them and forgot them, or they left him, or something like that. It was that he never did know them to begin with. They didn't come to him in the right way. Okay, and I always liken it to this. I think this is a good point to be made right here, is that there's only one way to God, and that is through Jesus Christ and the work that he did on the cross, how that he died for your sin, how that he was buried and rose again on the third day, according to the scriptures. That is the work of Christ for our salvation. All right. Any other works that's added to that takes away from the work that Christ did. And so what we're doing with salvation is, instead of trusting ourselves and trusting our works, we're trusting completely that what Christ did on the cross was sufficient for our need. And that takes faith. Now, if you're a little child, their faith can be in an instant. Sometimes for adults, it's hard for us to trust that Christ has this completely. Okay? But if you want your life to have meaning, then you need to trust him today. This is a decision that doesn't need to be put off. It doesn't need to wait till the end of the program or anything like that. Let's put it right up here at the first. Otherwise, your life will be meaningless. You can go right down through here, and everything that Solomon says, you know exactly what he's talking about, because you look at it and you say, well, what in the world am I doing all of this for? Okay? If it's not for God, it's not for him, then there's no purpose behind it. All right? But it's not in order to be saved. It's because that we've been saved that we do those things. He's changed our life. He's come into our life, and he's transformed us. He's made us into, and trying to make us into, the image of his dear son. All right, so that's what we're after. Okay, chapter 9. We're going to concentrate on this one today, and this kind of goes along with what we're already talking about. He says, for all this, all the things that he's talked about in the previous chapters, all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. Everything is in God's hand. Everything that we do, what happens to us, it's in God's hands. Sometimes good things take place in our life. Sometimes they're evil. Sometimes they're bad. Sometimes they're just make us weep. Sometimes they just mow us over. But all of those things are in God's hands. Aren't you thankful? And that should give us some sort of relief as well. And that's what he's going to get down to. But the fact is that when something either good or evil happens or bad happens, we are still in God's hands. He is able to make us more than conquerors, and neither life nor death nor principalities nor angels nor any of those things can separate us from the love of Christ, right? That's from Romans chapter 8. Go back and read that. There's nothing that can separate us from him. So as we walk through life, no matter what is thrown our way, one thing that will not be taken away from us is the love that God has for us. And so what we're doing as we're going through these things, and this is the great thing about being a child of God and going through these difficult times, is that as we do that, God is in control. We can know that he is in complete control, and he has a purpose and a plan for us. Okay? Now, what is that plan? I said, boy, if I just knew what the plan was, I could probably take it. Well, he actually gives that to us. I've turned to this passage many times, but you can do this as well. Turn to Romans chapter 5, okay? And he walks us right through it, that we've been saved by faith, justified by faith, we stand in grace. And then he talks about how that we can have joy in tribulation. Rejoice in tribulation. Why? Because we know that tribulation works patience, patience works experience, and experience gives us hope. And that hope is what makes us not ashamed, because the love of God, we realize that the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Spirit. All right. And so we can walk through life knowing that as we go through these hard times, they are faith builders. They're to help us become the people of God that He wants us to be. We are in the hand of God, no matter what. If it's evil, learning. We're just learning how to become more like Him. No man knoweth either love or hatred, by all this is before them. Okay, so even all of the love and the hatred and all of those things that are around us and we know this stuff is going on all the time, then doesn't matter, because why? We are in the hand of God, and nothing can separate us from His love. He will always love us. He will never leave us nor forsake us in everything that we go through. Verse 2, all things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good and to the clean and to the unclean, to him that sacrificeth and him that sacrificeth not, as is the good, so is the sinner, and he that swears as he that feareth an oath. All right, now this is what he was talking about way back in chapter 5 through chapter 8, about taking these oaths, speaking, worrying about speaking too much, making oaths too quickly, all of those kind of things. He says, look, there's one end to everybody. And no matter what you've done, whether you've sacrificed or you haven't sacrificed, whether you've done good or you're a sinner, whether you've swore or him that fears to take an oath, there's one end to all of this, okay, to all of us on these things. Verse 3, this is an evil thing. This is an evil among all things that are done under the sun, and there is one event unto all. Yea, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. What's the one event that happens to everyone? Okay, well, Hebrews kind of concludes it like this. In Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27, says that, and as it is appointed unto man once to die, but after this, the judgment. Okay, so for all men, no matter what you've sworn, what you haven't sworn, no matter if you've lived a wise life or you've lived a foolish life, there's one event that happens to all that are under the SUN, and that's death. Okay, but after this, the judgment. Now that's the part that Solomon is going to bring to light in those last two verses of the book. Okay, he doesn't mention that here yet, not yet, but you have to understand that this is all in the works. This is what he's pointing us to, is that, look, no matter how you live, whether it's good or bad, you will face judgment one of these days before God, because we're all going to die. And after this is the judgment. All right, so he says, verse 4, for to him that is joined to all living there is hope. While you're living, there's hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. As big and ferocious as a lion is, you'd compare that to a dog, you'd say, I'd rather be a lion any day, unless you were dead. And then it would be better to be a living dog than a dead lion, all right? Because while you're living, there's still hope. There's still things that you can do, still things that you can change. And that's why I kind of put that on the front end there, is that if you're listening to this right now, that means you're alive. And if you're alive, no matter how bad things are, you can turn things around and give them into the hand of God, so that you are then in his hand. And then so that everything else that's going on in your life, he's able to make everything beautiful in his time. We just need to turn those things over to him. I mean, this is a very hopeful thing for us. I've seen people that have been in destitute times. I remember a fella coming to me one time, and he was headed to jail for all practical purposes. He came to me. He says, "Pray with me, Pastor, about this," and which I wasn't his pastor then. And he says, "You think God can turn this around?" And I said yes, but I was looking into the situation, and I was thinking, there ain't no way that anybody can turn this thing around. I mean, that's what I was thinking in my mind. I did not tell him that, but I was thinking, I was like, I don't know about this, but it's because of my limited faith that was the case. But he gave his life to Christ. And the Lord somehow, some way, I'm not saying that he's going to make it where you're not going to go to jail or whatever if you deserve to be there. But what I saw is that he turned his life over to Christ, and then he started getting everything in line, and it wound up being just a solid Christian man that feared the Lord. His family, he had a beautiful family. He had children. I mean, everything you'd think that wouldn't have been possible the day that he came to me, and it was in short order too. I was so amazed. I think God did it maybe as much for me as he did for him, but what it does is it gives us hope that even if we caused all of the problems and situations, when we turn them over to him and put them into his hand, he can certainly do a lot more with it than we can. It may not all be unraveled in short order or whatever, but at least we know that we're in his care and in his hands. And that's something to be said. Okay, verse 6, he says, also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished, talking about those that died. Neither have they any more a portion forever, in anything that is done under the sun. Okay, again, under the sun, everything is going to be forgotten one of these days. We think that things are so important and so tragic, so evil, so good, even whatever that the case may be, and that it's never going to change. But the fact of the matter is that it does, and it's all going to come to an end one of these days, and it'll all be forgotten one of these days. It'll all perish. We know even in our own lives, there's been many things that that's happened that we feel like are so tragic, and yet they come to an end. They comes to a, and sometimes we don't even remember them, and just a few days after they happen, but we think at the time, we're going to die. We're going to die. But it doesn't happen, and it goes by super quick. It's a season, okay? And this goes back all the way to the previous chapters there. We're in chapter 3. In everything, there's a season, okay, and a time under heaven. And so what you have to understand is in life that we go through different seasons of life. Go thy way. So this is what he says. Because of all of this, go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, and drink thy wine with a merry heart. For God now accepteth thy works. When we put them into his hands, he can now accept the works that we do. And so we may as well go around with joy, and we may as well enjoy whatever it is that we're going through, because he's going to see us through, no matter if it's bad, good, or evil, or whatever the case may be. We can know that he's got this. And so you can go through and enjoy your life. And if it's bad, you know that even with that there's some sort of consolation, because you're going to come away knowing more, having these lessons that he's given to you. Go thy way, eat thy bread with joy, drink thy wine with a merry heart, for God now accepteth thy works. Let thy garments be always white, let thy head lack no ointment. In other words, put on fresh clothes, comb your hair, brush your teeth, get in there and live life. Live joyfully, verse 9. That with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of thy life, of thy vanity, which he giveth thee under the sun. So you enjoy every day that God gives to us. It's a gift to us. And so we can go through and just be, whatever. But the fact is that God has this. And so if he's got this, we can enjoy all the days that God gives us here on this earth. That's a great thing. All the days of thy vanity. For that is thy portion in this life. Whatever it is, bad or good, that's your portion. So you may as well enjoy it. You say, man, if I have to enjoy that too much, that's going to be tough to do. And sometimes it is. It's hard to get our minds wrapped around it and our minds right and say, if God's got this, then I'm okay. Again, I go back, and I think I mentioned this at the first part of whenever we first started going through this, but I think about the old disciples rowing over in the storm and Jesus being in the bottom of the boat sleeping. Jesus could sleep there because he knew he was in complete control of the situation. There wasn't anything that he couldn't do. And so he was able to just enjoy the ride. The disciples, however, were scared to death. And many times we go through life just completely scared to death because of what may happen, not even what's happening, but what might happen. We're so fearful of the future that that's the case. Okay? Whatever thy hands finds to do, do it with all thy might. All right. Now, again, so this is say, well, so that means I can go and do whatever. Read the conclusion again. All right. The whole duty of man is to do the commandments of God. So whatever God has for us to do, that's what we're supposed to do. That's the reason why you have to put all of these words together. Don't just take this out of context. And many people do. Do it with all, whatever your hand finds to do, just do it with all your might. Well, let me tell you something. You do the wrong thing and you're going to have a handful of troubles is what you're going to have. All right. But if you do things for the Lord and take this in context, and you'll know what he's talking about. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest. All right. So once you go to the grave, you're leaving all of these things behind. And so while we're here, do everything you can with all that you have. Man, if there was one lesson I could teach to Christians, to church members, to everyone, is to do the very best that you can, doing whatever it is for the Lord. All right. If you're teaching a class, teach the class with all your heart. If you're preaching, preach with all your heart. Do the very best that you can. Don't leave anything behind. Do it all. Don't be, don't think, man, I wish I would have done better. I wish I would have. Don't do that. Just study hard, get in that class, and do the very best. You say, well, they don't appreciate. Don't worry about all that stuff. Just do the very best that you can do. Because one of these days you're going to leave it all behind and you're going to be wishing that you had done because all the things that we do here is what God's going to weigh out later. Okay. And so get it all done now. All right. Verse 11, I returned and saw under the sun, there we go, that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. Okay, so what you're given in this life, you are going to get. I mean, it's just, there's no other way around it. Some people are born rich, some people are born poor, some people are this or that, and there's a few things that you may be able to change about that, but you may not be able to change the country that you live in. You may not be able to change the family that you have. There's a lot of things that you can't change, and so they're just given to you. And so the only thing that was going to make sense at the end is that God has put you there for a purpose. And so do everything with all that you can. For man also knoweth not his time. All right. We don't know the time that nobody chose the time that they were born in. You may wish that you were born back in the 1800s, but you weren't. You're born now. You're born for such a time as this. As the fishes that are taken in an evil net, and as the birds that are caught in a snare, so are the sons of man snared an evil time, and when it falleth suddenly upon them. We don't know. War may break out. World War III. Anything could happen. So what are we supposed to do? Whatever God has put there in front of us to do it with all your might. Okay, because you may not have the responsibilities for changing all of that. And most of those things we don't. This wisdom have I seen also under the sun, and it seemed great unto me. There's a little city, few men within it, and there was a great king against it. So you have a city, and a king is coming up against this little city with a few people inside of it, and besieged it and built great bulwarks against it. In other words, the great king should have won this battle. Okay, but he's coming up against this little city. Now there's found a poor wise man, and he, by his wisdom, delivered the city. Yet no man remembered that same poor man. So in this city, there was a poor man that had some wisdom, and he said, hey, this is the way that we could defeat this king, this besieging the city. It says, I looked and saw this guy, and he was forgotten. Nobody gave him credit for coming up with this and saving the city. Okay, then said I, wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. So even though that you may be wise, if you're poor, that may not change anything for you. You may not, even if you come up with whatever, something that would cure cancer or whatever, then you may not get the credit for it. Okay, so what are you going to think in the end? Should you not do wise things anyway just because you don't get the credit? No, because we are working not under the SUN and for the credit of those who are under the SUN, because chances are they're trying to get ahead too, and so they may take what you have and steal it and go with it. All right, and so sometimes that happens. And that's what Solomon's saying here is this happened to this poor man. He came up with this idea of how to defeat this king, and yet he was not acknowledged for what he did there. All right, and so what are we supposed to do? Well, we just still do the very best that we can with what we have, and God ultimately will be the judge. We will stand before him in judgment, and so we'll get credit for it when we stand before him. Then said I, wisdom is better than strength. The poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. The words of wise men are heard in quiet, more than the cry of him that ruleth among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroyeth much good. Okay, and so don't think for a second, because of sin, because that we live in this evil world, that your wisdom is going to be heard, and that people are just going to come over and give you, just because that you do something good or think about something good. Don't think that somebody's just going to come pat you on the back and say, oh man, let's make him the king of our city. May not happen. So that's from living under the SUN. Okay, wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. Dead flies, this is where we'll stop for today. Dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary, hard to say, to send forth a stinking savor. So if you put flies in the ointment and make it bad, right? If you see a fly in there, or you see a mouse drinking out of something or eating something, then you just got to throw it out, no matter how good that it is. So doth a little folly him that is in a reputation for wisdom and honor. Okay, so a little folly can destroy even those that are the wisest of wise. You may feel like that you deserve great honor for what you do. And I know a lot of people that are in this place. There's a lot of people that do great things for the Lord, and they do them all their life, that never get the credit that they deserve in this world. Under the sun, they don't get the credit. All right, that's just the truth of the matter. I wish that they did. There's things that I don't give people the credit for like I should. Being a pastor is tough, because especially in our church, we have so many people that do so many great things in our church, and a lot of times that's behind the scenes. You don't see it, don't know it, but if they didn't do it, man, you'd be in big trouble. And I'm very thankful for them, but sometimes we don't give them the credit that they deserve, and that happens a lot of times. And there's some people that will walk away from serving the Lord because people aren't patting them on the back like they should, and they should pat them on the back. All right, but if that's what you're doing it for, then you've got your reward. That's according to Jesus's words, not mine. Okay, but what we're doing them for is we're doing them for the Lord. The Lord has got this, and he will take care of that. He will reward you in that day. And so the best thing that you can do is go back up here and where we said here in verse 10, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do for the Lord, do it with all thy might. Do it with all thy might. Don't worry about credit. Don't worry about anything like that. It's been going on for a long time. You see this guy that he talked about in this little city here. We know that stuff goes on all the time. People take credit for what other people do. But the fact is like we saw in the very last verse of this chapter, verse 14, for God shall bring every work, how many works? Every work into judgment, in every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. He sees it and he knows, and he is the judge. And so he'll make sure credit gets to where credit needs to go. All right? So don't you worry about it one iota. And I'll try not to either. All right? Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you've enjoyed this lesson. Share it with others if you do. If you get something out of it, please share it. You know, we all need the scriptures. We all need to know how to study God's word. Hopefully that's helped you through today. All right, let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this time that we have to spend in your word. I pray, Lord, that you would just give us the courage and the strength to do things with all of our might for you, for the work that you have for us, and not worry about where credit goes or anything like that, because you see and know it all. And we love you and thank you for all that you do. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you so much. Hopefully I'll see you next time.